This comes a little unexpected, but ARTMS just dropped a teaser for the Virtual Angel MV, even though the MV is just releasing next week. But I'm guessing that they might just drop another teaser right before the release, but I'm not sure. So I have a lot to say, so let's get right into it. The teaser starts off with VHS static, which ties in this MV with the birth MV. Also, the aspect ratio is the same as well, which then again makes me believe that this might be a dream sequence, or at least dream-like MV, just like BB's Everyday I Love You MV was. Because we know for a fact that that MV was actually just showing us her broken memories. And then the Loona 1/3 Rain 51 Decibel MV also had this aspect ratio and static effects. So maybe this all ties in together, but I'm not really sure yet. Now we see Heejin with really pale white hair and surprisingly blue eyes, which is unsurprisingly the way angels are portrayed in media. They have white or blonde hair and blue eyes with really pale skin. So yeah, an angel like Heejin that looks a little bit like the light being from the birth MV. And extra points for the fact that the background is a black sky with stars. So this could be in space. You might not know this, but in some cultures it is said that the stars in the sky are angels, or angel-like beings, or even souls that are ascending to heaven. That is also where the belief of wishing/shooting stars comes from. A wishing star basically was a sign that a soul is ascending to heaven, and the beings in heaven open up their gates to look over earth and take in the soul. So if you wish for something in the right moment, they can hear you and grant you your wish. But like almost everything, this is not really a positive sign in some other cultures. Two-sided coin, you know. So in Greek mythology, for example, it is said that Zeus is throwing stones down to earth because he's angry, just like he does with lightnings. Or another popular theory in Greek mythology is that Asteria, the titan associated with shooting stars, is being thrown out by Zeus and chased. So it can be a good or a bad omen, but since we saw the members fall from the skies in the birth MV, I am strongly guessing that this is just them chilling in space. So they might just be representations of angels or shooting stars, or whatever. But again, this kind of underlines my idea of these girls, the ones that fall from the sky as babies, are not the same members as the members that are trying to escape from ARTMS. Which also then ties into the whole virtual angel thing, because this could mean that these people are just fake angels or false gods, and that these members are the actual ARTMS members that were granted their powers by the goddess ARTMS. Now Jinso is wearing a white outfit, and interestingly enough she got to keep her red hair. I am guessing that this means that she is different from the others. In what way we don't really know, but I think she might be the one working against the light being from behind the scenes. It is also interesting to me that Heejin almost looks like she isn't wearing anything, and now Jinso and the other members have these white outfits on. And specifically Jinso has this hood over her head, as if she's trying to cover up something. She also has blue contacts and pearl earrings. Pearls are also a divine symbol because of how rare they were to find back in the days, so a lot of gods and goddesses are depicted with pearls. So this one is a little more difficult to see, but I think Hazel also has blue contacts. Also, she has her black hair now, just like she had for the pre-release covers. And she's wearing a cross earring. I mean, this reference is kind of obvious, so yeah. The MV in general seems to have a lot of references to Christianity, so this all fits in together. Now Kimlip has her orange hair again, just like she had for the birth teasers, but not really the birth MV. She also is wearing blue contacts, and you can't quite tell, but her ring seems to have some type of butterfly or flower on it, but again it is not really that clear. Now Cherry, just like Hazel, seems to wear darker blue contacts. This of course, and the black hair, makes the two of them quite similar. They also both have this white fabric around their necks. Also, Cherry has these white streaks in her hair, and altogether this kind of also reminds me of her version up look, so maybe we're going back in time with Cherry. The stars are all of a sudden gone, and we see static again, when it switches to the Outer Circle members' colors in the background and some type of cross/bow with the ARTMS name on it. It looks like something you would find in a church, and I feel like that is quite purposeful. Again, static and black flickering. Then we get a flickering virtual angel logo that looks like it came straight out of an arcade machine. When this sun kind of thing starts to flicker again. This really reminds me of like old VHS tapes that sometimes started to flicker. Not really in the same way like this does, but you know what I mean. It feels like ARTMS is kind of referencing these older aesthetics, like the early 2000s aesthetic, with this Y2K kind of look in their outfits, in the designs, and well, also kind of in the way that this looks like a VHS tape. Now, this is a really fun dancing scene that looks like they are dancing in heaven, standing on clouds. Heejin, Junseo, and Kimlip are also the only members that have these strange kind of cloth crosses on their clothing. And again, Hassel and Cherry seem to have these white strings around their necks. Then we get another shot of an ARTMS cross that looks like a mix of a cross and a bow and an arrow. And to the side you can't quite see it that well, but there seems to be an antler there. So this maybe is another version of the deer wall from the birth MV. A table with a book. The book has feathers and hearts on it, and it says love on the cover. And then there is this strange kind of crossbow again. This time it has colored gems and a heart strapped around it. So this symbol could be a type of false goddess symbol, since the goddess is showing herself to the members as ARTMS, the goddess of hunt. And it fits the ARTMS light stick as well, that this kind of looks like a bow mixed with a cross. And on this side there is a candle, just like in the birth MV. And these look like cups. It just kind of reminded me of these cups that Jesus Christ is sometimes shown with. So this could be another Christianity reference, but I'm not quite sure. Then there is what seems to be a candle holder and this butterfly thing next to it. Could be a thing that is used to turn off candles. Well, that sounded very sophisticated of me. And then there also is this pocket watch that has the world map on it. Again, this could be another version of the birth table, but I just don't know. This to me is kind of interesting because you can see two redheads on the sides without stockings, then two black-haired girls with these sheer pants / stockings, and a white-haired Heejin also with stockings / sheer pants. So they kind of fit together now and have this symmetry. In a way, you could say that this is what Junseo meant when she said that the hair color changes will make sense once Virtual Angel is released. But we will have to wait and see. Now we switch to some girls that are destroying a car. They are all wearing these fake angel wings that look very much like the wings from the Ensemble teaser images. They are wearing alternative type clothing, but when you look closely, it seems like they are wearing school uniforms underneath. My guess is that this shows us girls that break out from the system. They modify their school uniforms, like some teenage girls do in Japan, to show their individuality. This is, for example, also something that is heavily related to the Geru style. Geru meaning as much as gal in English. Women and girls are pressured into following the beauty standards to follow the conformative beliefs of society. So they have to have pale skin, not a lot of makeup on, and black hair. Otherwise, they are outcasts and considered to be ugly. So some girls / women made it their mission to go against this conformative society by deciding to dress in this opposite way. This was also inspired by magazines that brought American fashion to Japan. All of a sudden you could see these tan girls with blonde hair and lipstick that is lighter than their skin color and fake eyelashes as well as fake nails. And it was considered to be beautiful instead of ugly. The Geru subculture was also very much popular with teens, and so they began customizing their uniforms, so something that was meant to make everyone look the same, all of a sudden was something that made you stand out. And I think this is also the case with these girls, who still have their skirts on and their uniforms underneath, but they accessorize the outfits to make them reflect themselves in their outfits, instead of looking all the same. This flashes to Heejin in space with two cross symbols next to her. It's like the ARTMS members inspired these girls to go against the system and to be themselves. The ARTMS members being some type of god or goddesses to these teenage girls. Now you can also see that the girls not only have tattoos, but one girl even has a bald head. So yeah, something that is not really accepted in a lot of cultures for girls to have no hair and for people in general to have tattoos. And they are so proudly showing this off, showing us their individuality. And I would love for this to be schoolgirls that get dress coded that are now destroying the car of the principal. That would be a cute storyline for me personally, but whatever. Now a scene that is really difficult to make out, and that might be on purpose. This, to a lot of Uri, is savior, but it could also spell out divine or something else. What I'm saying is that this font is pretty difficult to make out, and some letters look like they could be different letters at the same time. It's not really made clear what this is kind of supposed to spell out. whatever. And the background graphic is interesting as well, since it shows us an upside down triangle. So this could be about Eden. I mean, Gowan's symbol is an upside down triangle, so who knows. Now this morphs in all kinds of ways. This looks like the ink that goes into printers, not gonna lie. And now one of these bow crosses with dots around it goes into 5 crosses with dots around them. So another sign that the girls are 5 members, but they all came from the same one entity. They are 1 in ARTMS, but now are 5 ARTMS members, something like that. Now the aesthetic of the teaser is very much 2000s, and the birth MV was very much giving Middle Ages, so we are definitely playing around with time in this era. My point still stands that I believe that there are 2 sets of girls, that there are these AI artificially created humans with these ARTMS members, and the original Loona ARTMS members that are currently dreaming or maybe hallucinating. And from this point onward, this is more of a general discussion on what this comeback might look like, or at least what I would wish for the debut of ARTMS. This far we have gotten a lot of hints at the fact that there are 2 sides to this debut. We have the AI pics and then the drawings. We have the girls with blonde hair that sit around the light being, and then the afraid ARTMS members that are trying to run from it. And now also the aesthetics that are clashing, together with the themes of social conformity and being oppressed by an evil entity. Just think about the members all having to wear uniforms, and now the schoolgirls that also all have to wear uniforms. Or the members all having blonde hair, and now we have white hair, black hair, and red hair. I believe that this comeback/debut will show us a fight between the oppressed and the oppressor, David against Goliath, YYXY versus Eden, you know what I mean. We will see that the light being tries to keep the members down by taking away everything that makes them them. They take away their hair colors, their outfits and styles, and last but not least, their own decision making. Just like the YYXY members, they will have nothing to say about their own lives. And I somewhat believe that when Jaden Jong was talking about the old subunits a few months back, and mentioned how he would like to do more with them, I think that this might hint at the fact that we now get what we have been waiting for all these years. We never really got to see YYXY's fight against Eden. They just were in Eden and they exited Eden. But since there were plans for a repackage album, I believe that there was more to YYXY's plan than just leaving Eden behind, and that now that ARTMS is going to debut, we are getting this last puzzle piece, this rebellion against the light being/false god, the conclusion to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy quote, because if God gave you an apple tree and told you not to eat from it, that would be a pretty evil god. You maybe would be better off without him. So what if this storyline ties back into the YYXY storyline? I mean, the song called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is letting us know that there definitely is a connection to the YYXY members, so this would be a really interesting thing to do with the subunits. And now, halfway through the program, something I would like to see from this comeback would be a big bow over all of these themes. The AI versus real art thing, the going against social standards and rules and being yourself, the fighting against all odds and, well, David versus Goliath stuff. I would like to see everything be a small part of a bigger puzzle. And that is why I'm now going to explain to you something for like the next 20 minutes. We will get back to ARTMS, I swear, but this all just makes a lot more sense if I first do some explaining. So the artificial humans of Lucemble and ARTMS, together with the robot/AI themes of, again, Lucemble and ARTMS, make me think a lot about old movies that, just like an alien horror movie, can be interpreted as social criticism. A movie about aliens taking over your town is also about you not believing in your neighbors, because everyone could be an enemy. So you think that they are the threat, and they think that you are the threat. This is exactly why the Body Snatchers movie and book can be interpreted in 2 opposite ways. The story is famously supposed to be an allegory for the communist threat during the Cold War. In a way, the aliens then are just communists that live amongst us, which was a real thing that people lost their livelihoods and lives over just because someone thought they might be a communist. But the story can also be seen as a commentary on exactly that. The McCarthyism. This is also known as the Second Red Scare, and describes the loud anti-communism and conspiracy theories that characterized the early days of the Cold War. So while the story can be seen as the communists are a real threat and will end the world, It can also be seen as, well, some people are really scared of the communists amongst us, so much that it is scary how fast everybody turns into an enemy in their eyes. So when birth is connected to alien movies, and alien movies could be an allegory for the fear of the people around you, it all of a sudden makes a lot more sense why the members weren't together for most of the MV. It even perfectly describes how Uri and Lorbit have been looking at this era this far. What if Jinsol is a bad guy that tricks the other members? What if Heejin is secretly the light being, or what if Heejin killed the light being to become so powerful? We, just like the characters in an alien movie, start pointing fingers at each of the members, and we try to figure out who the bad guy is. But what if there is no bad guy amongst the members at all? Now, because this story is not only told through the old-looking birth MV lore drawings, but also through the futuristic spacecraft in the Lucemble MV, and of course through the title track being Virtual Angel and them using AI to create teaser images, I believe that Modhouse are using even more references to old movies and media in general to underline their messaging. I think that Virtual Angel could be all about the fear of AI and robots taking over, and the classism behind this thought. And I feel like the teasers show off some of this when they contrast the divine-looking girls dancing on clouds like angels, while underneath them there are the real people struggling to live under a system that tries to unify them and takes away their individuality and through this their freedom. Now this of course could be wrong, but I thought it was interesting enough to fill an evening with, so stay tuned because the history of art and movies is, well, interesting, I swear. The movie Metropolis from 1927 is all about the lower class living in poverty and the higher class living in a utopia. So again, the idea of one having to suffer for someone else to ascend to even higher wealth and status. Then there is the Maschinenmensch, who is featured in the movie, both in a robot form and in a human disguise. The Maschinenmensch was one of the first fictional robots ever depicted in cinema, and as a result popularized the concept all around the world. In the movie, the Maschinenmensch is created by a scientist to look like his one love, who died while giving birth, and it strictly follows the commands of its creator. Well, doesn't that sound kind of familiar? In the technocratic giant city of Metropolis, workers and the upper class live completely isolated from one another. Workers are considered inferior and they have to work in the depth of the earth, where there's neither sun nor joy, and they live in cramped mass shelters. But the rich and powerful reside high above the ground of Metropolis, in the paradisical eternal gardens, which, might I add, does sound a little bit like a Garden of Eden reference, but also a bit like a reference to heaven, since it is located high above the earth, and the workers live underground, so it could be a reference to hell. One day, a group of children from the lower city appear in the eternal gardens, accompanied by a woman who shows the children how quote-unquote their brothers live. The woman is called Maria, and one of the men living in the eternal gardens, called Further, falls in love with her. He visits her in the Undercity, where he notices how bad the working conditions are for the workers, when a big explosion happens and the now not living workers are brought away just for new workers to take over their places. But then the higher classes notice that their underlings are planning something, since they distribute pamphlets to the higher classes, and Further, the man from the Eternal Gardens, finds out that the woman he fell in love with is the leader of the revolutionaries. Long story short, the Maschinenmensch turns into Maria and is advised by her creator to stir up the conflict between the rich and the poor classes to lead to the destruction of Metropolis, because he wants to take revenge on the leader of the city, who is the son of his dead lover, because he was the child she gave birth to and then died. Yeah, I mean, the leader is not really a good guy, so I guess that is also part of his reasoning. The Undercity is flooded and the real Maria saves the children together with Further, and her doppelganger is killed by the workers of the Undercity because she kind of led to their homes being flooded, so she is burned. Then the scientist is killed by Further, and through everything that had happened, the residents of Metropolis are initially united, which could lead to a better future for everyone without the class system in the future. But we never really find out what really happens after this initial happy ending. It is realistic in this way because in a lot of places all over the world, in a lot of different time periods, people have fought for what they think is right, but once the initial joy and unity after the victory over the battle is over, it happens quite fast that everything returns to its initial state, Rebellion doesn't always lead to change, when the people in charge of change are the ones that caused the rebellions to rebel in the first place. So if Metropolis stays the same in a political sense, then I guess there is not really a chance for anything to become better, because people of the higher class obviously want to live better lives than the lower class people, and that can only happen if somebody has to suffer for their wealth and for their power. So there are a lot of different themes in this movie, like for example the class differences and technology taking over, which then only benefits the rich people, while it doesn't really help out the poor people, so it overall being a bad thing. This not only made me think about the industrialization, because this also was a theme in a lot of post-industrialization books, but it also made me think about the Art Deco style/movement, because it took place right around the same time, and also because it deals with similar themes, and since I love art, I just have to vent a little bit, okay? First of all, the movie Metropolis is using Bauhaus and Art Deco to contrast the coldly unified undercity, and then it uses surrealism and fantastical designs to depict the utopian eternal gardens. In this movie, they use styles to underline their messages, which is also a method that is quite often used in music videos, since you have to portray a message without using speech, and of course in the short span of like under 5 minutes. So for example, and I really want to make this its own separate video, because I love this example, but in Chu's Heart Attack MV, they use the surrealism and realism styles to contrast the feelings of Chu and her rosy eyes for the world around her with the stone-cold truth of Eden that is shown through harsh lighting and the strong use of color that in it of itself clash with one another. This makes the black and white Chu vanish in the eyes of the watcher, while the surrealism brings attention to her specifically by giving her colorful clothing and making her stand in the middle of the room, filling up the space. I hope you get what I mean. So, why is the use of Art Deco in Metropolis so important to further understand the messaging of the movie? Well, first of all, let's talk about Art Deco, because I think that when I explain to you what Art Deco is, this will explain itself. The Art Deco period lasted from 1990 to 1939. The style represented the period after World War I and before World War II. It was a time of artistic experimentation, in which movements such as Bauhaus, constructivism, and cubism contributed to the shaping of the style of this time. The Art Deco style originated in France and was inspired by other European styles and movements at the time, like the German Bauhaus style that itself was criticizing the division between social classes by trying to unify the look of buildings. They used a lot of minimalism, functionality, and simple geometric shapes in their designs and wanted to shape the future this way. On the other hand, Art Deco is likewise characterized by its symmetrical sides and symmetry, playing around with geometric patterns and shapes, as well as using a variety of materials and ornaments. Art Deco designs represented modernism, even when it was used in fashion. This was also right around the time in which clothing started to be mass-produced, which together with the Art Deco movement and such led to products that were both individually crafted luxury items and mass-produced wares. But in either case, the intention was to create a sleek and anti-traditional elegance that symbolized wealth and sophistication, while trying to reduce the gap between rich and poor by unifying the designs. It kind of led to fashion, architecture, and design in general being unified, so it was a little more difficult to distinguish between the rich and the poor. But over the time this also changed a lot, and for example, since it was cheaper to produce light and thinly veiled fabric, there definitely was a difference in the quality of the fabric used for the poor and the rich. Back on track. So basically Art Deco conveyed a sense of opulence and luxury in fashion, but also in design, while at the same time making it accessible to everybody, since the mass production of clothing made it cheaper to produce, so also cheaper to buy. But it also helped to make architecture more accessible in a way, since there also were many buildings at the time that were designed in the Art Deco style, like public buildings and of course entertainment buildings like theaters and cinemas. This style was easy to produce and made less of a difference in social, economic, and political classes. But like you probably can already tell, Art Deco in a way was also used later on to criticize the system it was born into. Art Deco was invented in France and it spread all over Europe and America. So you could say that it was part of the trend for countries to unify their aesthetics, for lack of a better term. There was a lack of cultural depth, so it was criticized for being superficial and lacking cultural as well as historical depth, compared to other art movements that explored deeper themes and ideas that were unique to the countries and cultures they were formed in. This is why till this day, this style and similar styles are used to depict oppressive states in media, like in movies or, one of my favorite examples, even in K-pop. You can watch the Ateez Guerrilla MV as a good example. I mean, just look at the Metropolis cover design and then this shot from the Guerrilla MV. In the MV, we see Ateez clash with the dull gray and symmetrical background, and they start to fight against this oppressive state, till at the end of the MV they destroy the state by building a rebellion, saving art from being destroyed, which is a reference to real-life events, because in a lot of oppressive states, they started destroying art that they didn't like. They distribute pamphlets all over the city, and well, they bring color back into this world. It happens quite often that oppressive and fascist states try to unify their people, by not only making them look like one another, and by taking away people's cultures, historical backgrounds, religious practices, and so on and so forth, to unify the people under one leader, but they also try to unify themselves with the people, by making themselves look like the ones that they are trying to oppress. Which then kind of made me think about the light being, and how this light being might be evil. It mimics the people it sees, and this makes me think that it has something to hide. And the uniforms of the members make clear to us that they are being unified, that their freedom is being taken away from them slowly. So to get back to the original topic, so TLDR, the usage of aesthetics, designs, and styles always has to underline the messaging. And in the case of Metropolis, you can basically understand the movie without even speaking the language, because the power of the images that are shown to us gives us every information we need, which again is because of the different art styles that they use. Surrealism just says something different about a story than realism does, or Art Deco and Bauhaus say something different about a story. You know what I mean? And so I think that ARTMS could be playing into this with, for example, their totally different concepts for the pre-release songs. Again, Birth being this kind of middle-aged looking style, and then you get the other pre-releases, which look like modern day. And now this one looks like it plays out in the 2000s. And then when you take Ensemble into everything, then it makes it even more strange that you have a storyline that is basically going from Middle Ages into futuristic spacecrafts. But again, this all is used to underline the messaging. And I think that ARTMS using AI and artificial beings in their MVs is also playing into this. At least that is kind of like what I'm hoping for. The messaging of an AI is basically non-existent. It doesn't create, it recreates something it knows. But it doesn't quite know the meaning of anything, because it cannot know what something feels like and means to a person, because it just is not a person. The use of AI in the teasers is showing us this full force. Why is there an opening in the glass slipper, and why is there smoke? And why does the candy in Candy Crush look so generic? Well, because AI doesn't show us these things to convey anything. You ask it to show you something and it looks for the answer elsewhere. Since an AI cannot think, it cannot really give us his own perspective on anything. The art that was made by real people, on the other hand, convey a lot to us. The artists made this with something in mind. These two girls almost kissing on the Candy Crush teaser could show us the sweetness of love, or how you can't get enough of someone because you're addicted to them just like you're addicted to candy. Or maybe it means something completely different, but I can tell you that it at least means something, and maybe it means something different to every single one of us. But that is the art of art. And that is why I would love for this to tie into Metropolis and Art Deco as well, because this style was and is all about making something cheap and easy and taking away individuality from people. That this can have positive effects, I already told you, but in an artistic way it can cause so much harm. I mean, under artists, it is a typical joke to make fun of the fonts someone uses. Oh, they used Bauhaus for their book cover. Totally unique, never been done before. This has to get an award. This has become such an inside joke because artists love art and creativity, and then they have to work for clients that want these same 5 things every single time. Just like AI, these real artists just have to reproduce the same image over and over again. Don't even get me started on book covers here, because this is really where this all ends. You have 50 book covers that all look so similar that when you go out of the bookstore again, it becomes one big blob of nothingness. What is this book about? Well, there's a coffee mug and a pair of glasses on the cover. Probably a love romance novel about a real estate agent falling in love with their high school crush. Or something completely different, because I can tell, and you can tell. We all cannot even tell what the book is about by looking at the cover. I can only recommend you this video about the topic. It really just frustrates me to no end. So we basically get to see two sides to the teasers, because there is this Art Deco Undercity kind of style, made cheap and fast, has no real meaning, and there is nothing individual or unique about it. And then this is kind of like the Paradise Garden, that is fantastical and makes your mind wander. But ARTMS are basically working on bringing equality into the world. They try to destroy the Art Deco, the AI, the artificial, the unified look of the light being, and the light being taking away their freedom one step at a time. They want to destroy all that and want to bring freedom and creativity back into everything. That is why the real art is shown to us after the fake art. Because I had this theory that the AI art might be like propaganda from the virtual angel/light being, and then the members see this propaganda and create real art inspired by it. They basically protest the light being with this, and I would love for them to thematically bring all of this together by using different aesthetics and motives to show us this conflict, just like they did with the AI and real art. So to just quickly get back to ARTMS' debut, if they were to use these themes presented in, for example, the movie Metropolis, this would make for a great debut story. They were oppressed by the light being and lost their individuality, which we can see time and time again, by the members wearing the same clothing in the MV and the teasers, and having blonde hair, and in the other pre-releases they all have unified outfits. They were unified under their leader, the false god, quote-unquote, and can now only fight back by taking back their individuality and making other people question this so-called utopia as well. This we could already see through the use of real art contrasting the AI art. Again, as if the AI art was propaganda by the light being, and they took it and made real art out of it as a protest. Then the MVs show us these kind of bland, dreamy utopias, while these single covers show us these colorful outfits, and some of the members' hair is changing to other colors, like Jinsol has red hair, totally contrasting the other members, and in the pre-release covers, Heejin and Hassel have black hair, for example. It seems to me like Jinsol is the only one that kept a part of herself through her red hair, because she is the only one that in the pre-release MVs this far had red hair, while the other members all had blonde hair. She probably was the first one to notice that this god is not a real savior, wink wink notch notch, and instead started to fight against this utopia and light being by taking back her individuality. To me, this story would fit greatly into the overall narrative of the girls coming together but still keeping their individuality and styles intact. I mean, the pre-debut songs couldn't be more different from one another. I mean, Heejin in a handbook and Ode Circle in black suits type different. So if they were to criticize the use of AI and the taking away creativity through connecting this to styles like Art Deco and Bauhaus in contrast to surrealism, and if they made the connection to making people forget about their individuality for quote-unquote the sake of all, then this could tie everything together really well. Then the girls advising others to do the same would also fit really well. They give others the courage to fight back as well. And if you look at the teaser again, you get to see people that normally would be alienated by others for looking different. But ARTMS brings these people together, and they enjoy their differences together. They show their real selves and become quote-unquote real angels and beacons for light and hope instead of culture vultures that only try to unify themselves under a trendy aesthetic that ultimately means nothing and hurts everyone. At the end, you should always remember that art is a form of protest and was always used to criticize something and show your individuality. So go out there and create something, I guess. This video has been all over the place, but I hope you still found something interesting in the mix. And if you did like the video, you can like and subscribe, and I will see you next time with my Loona solo song tier list, hopefully. So see you then.